I feel like entrepreneurship is one of those things where you can have like the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and it can all be in like one day. I don't know who said that, but that is totally true. There's been days where you get a big opportunity, another one just fumbles, and then something goes wrong, goes haywire. And it's very bizarre, but it's so fun.
Hey guys, I'm here today with my friend Zach Norris, and I taught this kid Spanish when he was in first grade over 20 years ago. And now we're sitting on the podcast to talk about his family, his faith, and his business. You've got to check this out. Zach Norris.
Yes.
Good to be here, man.
Yeah.
So this is a podcast first.
Yep.
So you and I were sitting in a Foundry group meeting 6 months ago.
Yeah, give or take.
Like 6 months ago. Yep. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I know that guy. Haven't seen it. Where do I know him from? And we're both kind of staring at each other across the room. And I shared my story. You shared your story. And then we both realized I taught you Spanish in elementary school.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s.
First grade or something.
You were in like first grade? Yeah. Was it over at Trout?
Yep.
Core Knowledge. And I'm like, where do I know him from? Because it'd been forever.
It was nuts.
And then we just kind of connected. We have like mutual friends, and you're jumping into business, great man of faith. And then we started talking about getting you on the podcast, man. Yeah. So thanks for coming.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me. It's a crazy connection. It's one of those things where, you see someone from a while back and you recognize their face, but you can't put your finger on it. And then ultimately you get to that clicked moment where there you are.
Who realized it first? Or was it kind of both at the same time?
I think it was both at the same time. Yeah. I think after we talked, or after the Foundry meeting was over, we ended up talking to each other. We were like, wait a minute. We know each other. So
it's crazy. So share your story, man. Like you're recently married, young, new business owner. You got a lot going on. Love to hear. Just catch me up to speed, man, on how you got here.
Yeah. It's been a year of pure turmoil, but in the best way. It's been a fun type of turmoil, which I'm sure you operate in several cases. But I guess for as far as the whole story goes, business wasn't really the route for me from, I guess, the very beginning. I actually wanted to do some medical stuff because my whole family is in the medical field. Yeah. They are all in the medical field. My brother is a nurse. My dad's a doctor. My mom was a pediatric nurse. My sister works in dentistry. My other sister is doing medical research, and here I am, and I'm like the business guy here. So I ended up early on getting an interest in finance, applied to a bunch of jobs, and couldn't get a finance job when I was in college. Unfortunately, it was a very competitive market, and I thought I was smart, but I was not Stanford smart necessarily. And so that puts you down on the list, on the totem pole there. And so applied to a bunch of different jobs and just could not get any. And then I applied for, it was a fiber company out in Boulder called Zayo, and applied to be on their finance team and ended up getting through the interview process. I was getting excited, and all of a sudden I got beat out. And so unfortunately I was like, oh man, I'm not
almost made it.
Yeah. I'm just thinking in my head, there's no way I'm going to have any sort of an income this summer for any sort of an internship or anything like that. And then they called me back and they said, oh, you speak a bunch of languages we saw on your resume.
It's that Spanish. It's Mr. Shoup's class, man. Got you that.
I know. That helped. It was big. It all ties together. So it's the Spanish. And then I actually was learning Mandarin for a little bit when I was in elementary school. Ended up picking that back up in high school.
Did you? Okay.
And did that in college as well. So studied that as well as Arabic. And they saw all of that and they said, great. Like, do you want to jump in on our global reach team? I was like, man, dear God, anything I could do to make a paycheck and eat this summer sounds great to me.
Love that. Now, did you know with all your family being in like medical and doctors, and I didn't realize that. I thought it was just dad, but everybody growing up, did you feel like you had to be in that space? Did you know you didn't want to be? Like what?
It's a good question. Yeah. I actually just had an interest for it, but I get really queasy with needles and blood and stuff like that.
Right.
It really just would not have been my thing, I don't think.
You could do eyeballs.
Oh gosh, no.
No eyeballs freak you out?
It was fun. Yeah. My dad does the eye stuff, and it was really cool to watch him when I was younger. But the surgery piece of it, I never got to see. And I've seen some stuff. I got LASIK. The biggest mistake you can get doing LASIK is watching how they do LASIK. It's so bad.
It's gross, huh?
It's so bad.
I remember Emily got that.
Yeah. So, but that stuff just makes me queasy. I couldn't do it. And so I had a really big interest in finance. It was just fascinating to me. I think what really sparked that was we did a science fair project when I was a kid. My dad and I did dart stocks. And so we threw a dart at some stock listings, picked them, and compared the two of them based on, picking a portfolio versus picking it with darts, and kind of figured out, that everybody's been researching this over the last decade and more. But in reality, you can't beat the market. And that's kind of what we were figuring out there, which is kind of interesting. And I think that specific moment, it's one of those weird childhood memories that you just, for some reason, have locked in the back there.
Yeah.
But I think that might have been what sparked that finance interest.
Okay.
So, but yeah, unfortunately, didn't end up working in finance, got into tech. And
so you land this job. You've got all the language, and they see something in you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
take us through that. So how did that go?
Yeah, so I'm working there for a little bit, probably about 2 weeks, and then they do this big shuffle up at the top. And this is a big company, about 4,000 or 5,000 people or something like that work there. And so we're at the HQ, and people at the top make the decision to switch some stuff around. And so we get into a customer intelligence role, which is effectively, why are people buying what they're buying, and what would they want to buy and why? So you're really looking into, why are they having the use for the services that they have right now, and what could we upsell? That's kind of the mission of customer intelligence, if you will. So did that for a little bit. It's kind of like a marketing type thing. And then after that, ended up getting a job at a voice company out in California. And I was remote here, but was doing some sales for them for a little bit. Worked my way up to a territory management role, was crushing it there. It was a blast. And then just decided, I want to sell everything instead of just voice solutions and whatnot, which was really cool. It was like Zoom on steroids. It's kind of a neat product. But jumped out, started my own thing, and figured, why don't we sell it all and just help people out with, big picture stuff as far as the IT goes.
Yeah. So did you... so you kind of took us through, probably sounds like a couple of years, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of years. More than a couple.
Quickly, more than a few.
Yeah.
But was there a defining moment? Because you're an entrepreneur now, man, business owner. Like we were just offline, just talking about that. Like just the starting a new business and what that looks like. Did that come about in any certain way? Did you just kind of land there? When was that moment when you're like, I want to start a business?
Yeah. So I've started a couple of things in the past. I actually had a paint company for a while, funny enough.
That's right.
Yeah. And so it was a small thing.
But what was that? Because we talked about that.
Yeah. So it was called Scholarship Painters, and it was a thing. And we ended up fizzling that. It just didn't work out, unfortunately. But it was great. And paint's good. It's actually a really great business model because everybody needs it.
Yes.
It's something that doesn't disappear. No matter what, you're always going to need to paint a house.
Well, and a lot of the competitors, like it's super fragmented, and the stereotype of like the raggedy guy in the truck who might steal your wife's purse. Like that's about half of them.
It exists. It surely exists. But we had some crazy stuff when I was there. I remember we had to subcontract in some cases because we had like a lot of deals going on at once. I remember we had a deal that we subcontracted, and oh my gosh, this was the worst experience in business I think I've had so far. We sold the deal. They painted it. For some reason, they used interior paint on the exterior paint on the interior, because there was just, for some, I still don't know to this day, actually. I couldn't tell you. So we had to redo everything just to do it right, because we figured, why not do it right? Sure, it probably could have worked, but it just, I don't know, not really. we don't do subpar work when I try to do business. But anyway, then this guy starts to tell this lady, oh, your house looks like crap. Like, we doing such a good job here because it looks so awful or whatever, and continues to just tell him this was the sub. Yeah. And he's telling this lady how awful her house looks and just all the things he didn't like about it. And then I get a call from her crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And so that was kind of a defining moment of, part of wanting to do things on my own instead of subcontract things. And that was right around when the business fizzled anyway. So it just wasn't a thing that.
So you're like, I'm out. Just bouncing.
Yeah. At that point, it was just time to go.
Everybody's got to try a little bit of painting business though, right?
I guess so. Yeah. Everybody does it. So yeah.
Awesome.
But it was good. So I did painting business. I had a blog. We were talking about that earlier. I had a blog for a while. It was called $sign University. It was kind of funny. It was before finance blogs were like a big thing. And so I think I rode that wave for a little bit, and I really wish that I kept that blog. It would have been so good. It would have been definitely a cash cow.
It's growing. You had what?
I had about 25,000 monthly visitors on the blog, which is not like a ton. Most big blogs have upwards of 3, 5, maybe 750,000 monthly visitors, whatnot. In some cases, the millions. But for a 17 or 18-year-old kid, that's not bad out of a college dorm room, building something like that. And so it was fun. And that was a blast. That was before ChatGPT. So I had to write all this stuff. It started to become just a pain. It was a lot of work. And so done some stuff like that. had some other businesses that just didn't work out. And really this last year and a half that we've worked with Lamb Telecom, which is the current business I'm doing IT consulting with that, we have seen an immense blessing from God with that. And I think the difference between that and all of the other businesses is that God has been at the center of the business, hence the name Lamb Telecom, also known as the Lamb of God, right?
Yeah.
So that has been important to us. And I think it's really, it's been amazing. So
God wasn't the forefront of the previous businesses.
God wasn't there in the previous businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But back to the original question, like so it was the first business painting? Or were you just always, you had the blog, right?
Think. We tried to start a marketing thing a long time ago with some people, and it just didn't work. It didn't even get off the ground.
But you were always just launching things, right? So there wasn't
it's like
not a defining moment. You're just like,
exactly.
I do business. You just got into it, and it was always a part of your life.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. Throwing the spaghetti at the wall, letting it stick, and seeing what happens, and finally something sticked. So
when we're at the Foundry that day, you shared, I can't remember if it was with the group or if it was just you and I, because we had coffee after the group, right?
Yes.
After we realized, hey, we had Spanish class together.
Yeah.
But share your story. Like, how did you come to know God, and what brought you, what was life like before that? How did you get there?
Yeah.
Take me through that.
Yeah. Got a good friend of mine. And he was the best man at my wedding. It's funny. He always jokes, and obviously it's not, the case, because God is the result of everything good in my life. But he jokes. He's like, oh, I'm the result of everything good in your life. Because he did introduce me to God. He also introduced me to my wife, which is amazing. So
you got to give him some credit.
Yeah, he gets a lot of credit for that.
Right?
Yeah. But we were down in Miami, of all places, which is where my wife is from. So Miami's got a special place in our heart too, which is funny. But down there, he's preaching the gospel to me, says, hey, come to church when we get back. I said, great, sounds good. So went to church, started going, went for about a month, 2 months maybe. And I told myself on the way to church, if you're real, there's got to be communion on the table, and I'm ready to give myself to you. And I walked in the door, and naturally communion's on the table. And they didn't do it every week or in any sort of certain schedule or anything like that. So it's not something that I could have possibly known, especially having only gone there for a month or two. And it just happened to work out that God showed up right there for me. And I said, this is the day. And so I made that day as May of 2021. So yeah, it completely transformed my life. Made plenty of mistakes in the past, and certainly still make mistakes now, but now my trajectory is towards him. So
is the paint or roof on your home or business starting to look a little shabby? If so, reach out to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D Painting and Roofing is a full-service residential and commercial painting and roofing contractor in Northern Colorado. And full disclosure, I'm the M in M&D. Check them out at mdepainting.com. Are you a small business trying to navigate all of the landscape of digital marketing and don't know where to go? Reach out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. They are the go-to source for all things digital marketing. They are the producers of this podcast, and they run all of the marketing for all of my companies. Check them out at imprint-digital.com. So were you in that moment when you're driving to church that day, are you searching at that point, or like take me leading up to that? So was God part of your life growing up? Did you not know him? Were you like, don't want to have anything to do with him? What was that all like growing up? And how did you get to that moment where you're like, hey, ready to do this if you're there?
Yeah. So my memory doesn't really serve me super well in this one, but I do recall when we were kids, we would go to church pretty regularly, although I was way too young to kind of know what was going on. And then it ended up being kind of like the CEO Christians, the Christmas, Easter onlys. So so we were CEOs for a little bit.
I've never heard that before. I like that one.
I don't know where I heard that, but I thought it was hilarious.
That's good.
So we were that for a little bit. And then, obviously going into high school or college, didn't even explore the idea of that. And kind of towards the end of college, I had a couple of friends who had spoken a little bit into my life about, Jesus. And it really seemed that I think probably around that time, sort of mid to late college, was when I was starting to search for something, because I realized you could not be fulfilled by anything other than really the fullness of Jesus Christ. And so because of that, I just had this thing in my head where I would ask questions to people that I knew were of the faith. I was curious about it, and it really wasn't until, May of 2021 that I made that leap. So, yeah.
So how was that? So like, you kind of talk about BC days, like before Christ days, like so you come back right to friends and family and everybody, like what's their Because I remember, man, like getting out of that police car and like I'm almost dead and turn my life over. And I mean, I'm coming back to the friends that I'm spending time with. And I mean, like we were partying, man. We were drugging. We were doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
But what was your reaction from your people that you're hanging around? Right? 'Cause you had Christ followers in your life.
Yep. Yeah. I am really fortunate that no one was particularly hostile to that idea. And actually, it really gave me the chance to show them an example of what it looks like to turn away from the world and turn towards Christ. And so in that opportunity, I was really blessed because I never really even, BC, if you will, had that major issue of like the cop car situation or anything like that. Again, made mistakes, but nothing particularly crazy or, oh my gosh, Zach really turned his life around or whatever. Certainly my life did turn around, but it might not have been as dramatic as some people might think. But the things that started to go were cursing, for example, like that just went. I used to curse like a sailor and it just started to go, which is really strange.
You came and asked me all the curse words in Spanish. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I did.
You're
but
like Senior Shoup. How do you say?
That sounds like something I might have asked, honestly.
Didn't you?
It sounds like something I would have. I don't recall.
Was that you? That might have been. Because I remember I came home and told Emily, I'm like, this kid comes up and he told me all the words he wanted to know. He told me the words.
I would not have been shocked. No? I would not have been shocked if that were me. I probably was super curious back then what it would have been. I feel like that's what everybody asks.
Well, I'm trying to remember if I taught whoever that was. Might have been you.
Maybe you might have.
Bad influence. Look at this.
I know, exactly.
Circle.
Yeah.
It's coming back.
Well, here we are, right? So, but yeah, no, it definitely, stuff like that changed. It really, all the simple stuff adds up into a huge transformation. And really gave me the heart for other people too. I think in some cases I might have been, I didn't have as much empathy for others or their situations or whatnot. And I think I have a lot of a heart for that now. I even went on in that first year of being, or I guess it was second year of being saved, to start a ministry at our old church, which basically what we did was take a big group of people, volunteers, put stuff together, and send out a team to help people for various tasks, where there was, old ladies that needed their lawn mowed that couldn't do it on their own, that might have been widows, for example. We actually had one where this family was impacted by severe mold in their house. And so we got a whole crew to come out and do some landscaping outside. It's kind of funny. I actually went on HGTV too. But they had to do this whole thing with landscaping outside to divert the water away from the house to make sure that it didn't happen again. We had about like 25 or 30 people out there. It was great. And so having a heart for these people that are in disadvantaged situations, I think that was another thing that really switched. So
really cool.
Yeah.
So now you're in business, like first time you're doing it with God in the picture.
Yep.
Take me through those early days of business.
Yeah.
It's like new business owner watching this, right?
Oh my gosh.
What do you go back and tell Zach from the early days?
Yeah. Oh man. It's such a challenge. Starting something new is always a challenge. And in that case, I really had to rely on God. I went from making a really good income to making literally $0 and working on just savings and kind of paying myself a savings salary out of the emergency fund that I've kind of put together. And thankfully, I had stashed away a little bit, but there's still that thing in the back of your head that says, wow, like you are bleeding and you need to stop the bleeding. And so the natural instinct to that is to try super, super hard to put everything into your control and make it happen. But in reality, what that's going to do is send you down the wrong path, distract you, and really keep you from the goal. And so the goal that we figured out was we just want to serve Christ in whatever way that looks. And so what God revealed to me in particular with Lamb Telecom, and just to kind of give an idea of what we do, often like a general contractor is really the easiest way to describe it. I'm sure you'd probably understand this analogy very well, but they bring in someone to do the paint, maybe to do the walls, flooring, roofing, or even, granite countertops. Someone will come in, put it all together, and the house will get built. We do the exact same thing, but for IT, where we bring in the guy who does the phones, the internet, cybersecurity, backups, disaster recovery, security cameras, whatever it might be.
All for business.
All for business. Yep. Yeah. And so we'll build the, I guess, metaphorical IT house. So we're not building houses, but we're building IT infrastructure and putting that together. And really what we realized and what God revealed to us was, we should be serving the church in some way. And so the way we kind of were able to do that is because of the model of how our business works. We're able to offer free consulting for churches and faith-based organizations and whatnot to support their ministries, because a lot of them are disadvantaged. It's kind of crazy to me. People think that these churches have unlimited money and everything like that. And that's a common misconception. And sure, some of them might, but it goes to the ministry. They're very careful. They're very, very meticulous with the stewardship of how those funds are used. And to pay, twice as much for an internet circuit, or to pay twice as much for a phone service than you should be paying, is poor stewardship. And so if we're able to,
just because, sorry, I don't interrupt. Is that just because businesses are overcharging the church, or you found a way to do it and save them money?
A little bit of both. We've actually seen some churches that I believe have been taken advantage of. We found one, we just saved
because
them
they don't know or don't watch the money.
Some cases it's either A, someone comes in there and says, you have unlimited money, I'm going to charge you unlimited. B, it's you've got like the Spanish pastor and the facilities guy and whatever, that's all one person. And then they also do the IT just because they knew how to open a laptop and log someone in.
Right.
So maybe it's just someone who's less experienced, or the alternative and the third option that we usually, or the third situation that we usually see, is someone who just doesn't have time to review all these contracts because they've got several hundred people plus maybe thousands of volunteers that are working with the church and one or two guys on the IT staff. It's a very difficult thing to go back and look at your contracts and see what's going on. And so what we'll come in and do is we're able to just say, hey, we'll take this off your plate and just take a look at it. And at the worst case, we're free. So it doesn't really harm you in any way to take a look. And last year we saved almost $1 million for those types of organizations, which was crazy. $1 million in IT expenses.
It's really cool.
Absolutely nuts. So, but that's what was revealed to us was, let's go help and find kingdom funds to steward this better and be a part of that. Love that. But we also do businesses and stuff like that too.
I was going to say, so you work with businesses. Is it like mom and pop? Like what's your niche? So you've got the church. Is there a niche of a church that you serve, or is it just any and all churches that have an IT?
Yeah. So any and all businesses, organizations, churches, really anything like that. And in particular, as far as like the size goes, most churches we work with maybe like have about 50 to 100 employees. Some of them that we work with have upwards of 400. Some are like church plants. Like we just planted one last Sunday, actually, as of recording this, the 15th. We just planted one, and technically they're an IT customer. Obviously, we're not charging them, but it's definitely fun to work with, smaller churches as well to figure out how things should work. And then as far as businesses go, we just talked today with, a lady who had literally 3 physical phones that she's carrying around, but doesn't realize that she can put this onto an app and still operate out of that app. And then you just need one phone for all 3 of them. Yeah. So simple stuff like that, all the way up to, we've got an organization that has in their US branch about 8,500 employees. And we're working with them to try to find some savings on the mobility side of things and even migrate a new phone solution for them, and maybe even look at some servers and such like that to help them as well. So there's more complex stuff, but then there's the easy stuff of, people who just haven't had the chance to look at what's new. So
of that.
Yeah.
So what were some of the surprises of business ownership, or some of the struggles, or, say getting Hunter says this a lot, like getting kicked between the legs every day, right?
Oh yeah. The biggest thing for my specific business in particular, the time to get paid is grueling in this industry. What'll happen is, let's take internet, for example. Internet for your home is pretty simple. You just call Xfinity, they kind of turn it right up and you're good to go. Yep. When you're looking for a business that might need fiber, dedicated fiber, which is, kind of the best type of internet that you can really get as far as, classic internet goes. If you're installing some of that, sometimes you need to build it. It can take up to 120 days to build it. So a customer might sign paperwork, and it might take 4 months until you even see that circuit installed, and you aren't paid until it's installed. But then you get paid maybe 1 or 2 months after that's installed, because there's a delay in, when you get maybe even some sort of a commission on a sale of some sort like that. So it's crazy, the delay in payment. And sometimes for phone contracts, they've got or cybersecurity too, any type of IT service, any sort of software, there's usually a contract. And if you got 6 months until that other contract is over, sometimes that customer has agreed to pay for something, but you're not going to see it for another 6 to 8 months or whatnot for when you get payment. So that's been the biggest challenge. And we're finally starting to see a lot of that stuff that we saw last year come through today.
If you've got junk in your life or business that you need removed, reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts. They are a full-service junk removal company, and they'll be able to take care of you at your home or your business to get rid of whatever you don't want. Check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. If you're a Christian small business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. They are a Christian peer advisory community here in Northern Colorado and the Front Range that is designed to give you encouragement, support, and insight to grow your business with other like-minded Christian business owners. Not only are they a sponsor and a partner of this podcast, but I'm also a member of their community. Check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. So your first year, you just how do you eat? Like, how are you eating?
That was, savings completely.
So you just burning, you had some runway of savings, right?
Yeah,
and
so we're burning savings.
You're closing business, but just not getting paid on it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so this year looks a whole lot better. This year's actually pretty fun.
Good. It's cool when the money starts coming in.
Yeah, we're seeing some rewards from that. We're able to sponsor some events, which is fun too. Just went on a trip to Florida to visit some clients out there. And we operate nationally, which is kind of the nice nature of technology, but visited some clients out there. We're getting referrals from people. Things are getting busy. And I just talked yesterday to a guy who might come on and do some sales for us too, which is pretty exciting. So we're able to expand into the territory of now let's consider maybe some hiring and offloading some of this stuff that is very time consuming to start working a little bit more on the strategy of the business overall. So
and how's that going? Because is that new space for you? Like you hired Bob the painter that said that lady's house was ugly.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I think that all of this stuff, it's kind of like how God prepares you for the next steps, but you don't really realize that he's preparing you. It's similar with this. I mean, I feel like I was prepared for this because of all of the stuff that's happened with that. I'm a little more careful to vet things. The biggest blessing of all of this, beyond having the Lord involved in this, is that my wife's involved in this. Jessica is so intelligent and has the best intuition of anybody I have ever met. It's crazy. The discernment that she possesses is unbelievable. And so bringing her in on that conversation, it's kind of nice. Like I feel like I've got to, if I want to do something with the business, I try to sell it to her and say, hey, here's what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
Here's the benefits of this. Here's the drawbacks. What do you think? And just kind of leave it open to her. And if she says yes, I'm pretty confident it's going to work. And she hasn't missed yet. So it's been good.
Is that discernment, is that on anything or just like the people? Because I know Emily freaked me out. We'd go through this whole process and we've got a pretty good process now. People I think can sneak through.
Yeah.
And you don't get a good fit, but we'd have somebody trucking along in the interview process and she'd swing by the office. She's like, nope.
Yep.
Like, well, that's kind of like quick to judge there. No. And she's like, no, just I get a feeling. And she gets these gut feelings. She's never wrong.
Yeah.
She always tells me so.
It's scary.
Is she the same way?
Yeah. It's just like that. It's unbelievable. I don't know.
At first, that bugged me a little bit at first. Cause I want to be right. Like the prideful part of me wants to be right as the business owner. Like I just spent, 3 weeks with the team. Yep. We're interviewing, we're doing this, we're doing a disc test and checking.
Yeah.
She's like, nope.
Yeah. It's frustratingly good. It's one of those things like, man, like your pride wants to take over and you want to be the man in the business and you want to make these decisions. But then you're thinking in the back of your head, she's right. She's totally right.
Yeah. Now I'm just like, sorry, Emily, I don't like you. Bye-bye. So what does she do in the business then? Is she just there? Does she have a role or is she just kind of there supporting you or what's her?
So she's full-time at a healthcare clinic down in Denver. And so she's doing that right now. And she works on the donation side of things, actually. So it's really interesting. But as far as the business goes, she's definitely involved in discussions with new vendors and whatnot. Because again, the discernment there is incredibly important. Anything that I can bring her in on as far as like hiring and whatnot, that will now going forward be a part of that. Again, this was recent because it was just yesterday we talked to this guy. Okay. And in addition to that, she's kind of like our client advocate, if you will. So making customers happy, anything that would involve. thinking of ideas to make things happy, or make people happy, all of that. Cause she's got that nurturing and caring instinct that maybe I don't have as much. And I try to, work with her on that as much as possible, which is incredibly helpful. So
no, how did you guys meet? So you told me that your buddy, right, that introduced you to God, introduced you to your wife, right?
Yeah.
Props for him.
Yeah. Oh man, he's awesome. And he just had a baby too. So congrats to him. Congrats to Colin. Yeah.
Cause you're what, 6 months in your marriage?
Yep. About. Yeah. So we were married April 4th.
Where'd you guys meet? Cause I don't know that we've talked about that.
Yeah. So she was down in Miami, and my friend Colin was going to church down there for a while. And I showed up. Jess had, and I stayed with them for a little bit. Jess had wanted to move to Colorado for a while. She really felt her call on Colorado for several years, probably about 6 before I'd even met her. And I went there, I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and she must have noticed me in the crowd because of that Hawaiian shirt or something like that, or maybe just because I'm so good looking. I don't know, one or the other.
It was one of those.
Yeah. But anyway, thankfully, she kind of ended up asking Colin to introduce us. And so we ended up getting introduced, started talking, and I'm like, man, this girl is unbelievable. There's just something different about her that no one else I had ever met possessed. She was just so engaging, and it really felt like the strings were being pulled together. And we started talking, and 2 weeks later, I booked a flight to Florida because I'd gone back to Colorado at the time. I would never have done anything like that. I was not a very spontaneous person like that at all. I, was very calculated in most of the things I did. But for some reason, I just felt this draw to book a ticket and fly out there. And so we started talking, and it was that week that I went out there that we ended up starting a date and made her my girlfriend, and it was great. And then we continued to talk, did extra long distance for a little bit. She was in Korea for a mission trip for about 3 months. That was brutal. I'd wake up, she'd go to bed. She'd wake up, I'd go to bed. That was incredibly challenging with the time change. Yeah. But finally, we just made it happen. She moved to Colorado eventually. And so she was, living down south. I was living kind of up north in the Erie area. And we slowly moved together and finally got married, moved in together, and rest is history. So
I love that, man.
Yeah, it was nuts.
So journey, newly married, new business, new to faith.
Yep.
What do you tell somebody that's in that position or they've got a couple of those things intersecting?
Yeah. Well, you can do a whole lot more than you think you can is definitely the thing I've discovered. I was thinking about that on the way over here. I was driving around, I'm like, what am I even going to talk about? I have no idea. It's so many different things going on, but at the same time, I almost feel like nothing's happened. It's very bizarre. It's one of those strange feelings where it feels like nothing's happened, but then you look back, you're like, holy moly, we had a decade in the last year, but you can do so much more. You just push yourself to the limit, and you don't realize that you're pushing to the limit because God's on your side. He's got you.
But I'll go some days still, right? Some days it was Monday. It was just nothing was hitting. Everything was just off pace or off track. And I get to the end of the day, I'm like, that was the crappiest day ever. Nothing got done. Nothing got done. Right.
Yeah.
And then a couple of those stack, but you look back and you're like, hold on a minute. We just launched a book. We've got this going on. And I think it's easy to get lost in maybe the small defeats or the small pullbacks. But I forget, I don't do it as much to just totally pull back.
Yep.
Look at the last year.
Yeah.
Year, 2 years, 3 years. Kind of a deal. Yeah. Because we get so pulled in as entrepreneurs. I think that's important.
Yep.
What is it? Who says it? Is it Tony Robbins? He says all the good stuff.
I think so. Yeah.
You underestimate what you can do in 3 years, or no, overestimate what you can do in 3, but underestimate what you can do in 10.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I totally know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's bizarre. I feel like entrepreneurship is one of those things where you can have the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and it can all be in one day. I don't know who said that, but that is totally true. There's been days where you get a big opportunity, another one just fumbles, and then something goes wrong, goes haywire. And it's very bizarre, but it's so fun.
It is. And it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Not for everybody. Love that, man. Well, what else do you want to share with people listening, man? We got a lot of faith-based people and business owners. And just people that are overcoming and just walking through adversity right now.
Yeah. I think the coolest thing is, I was, again, thinking about this on the way over here. the last year that we've been working on launching this church, which is Rivers Castle Rock, it's in Castle Rock, has been so incredible to see some of the miracles that have come out of that. So, I mean, just sharing some of that stuff would be incredibly interesting. For example, we ended up finding this opportunity just because of Jess and my love for K-dramas, Korean dramas. Dude, I hate TV, but I love these things for some reason.
What is that?
They are incredible. I got hooked on them. Jess showed them to me. But basically what they are these, Korean, like telenovelas almost.
It's like a telenovela.
Yeah.
Korean.
Yeah. But they're captivating. And they're not like cheesy or anything like that.
Joey, he's selling us. Do you want to watch one?
A K-drama?
Yeah. Have you heard of this?
Bro, I've never heard of it.
I've heard of K-pop.
It's like K-pop. But
I've seen Squid Games. And I've also,
did you watch Squid Games?
I have not, actually. It's crazy enough.
Squid
That's
Games
the one I
is
haven't watched.
insane.
Yeah.
I saw Parasite. Also, that movie's incredible.
Yeah.
Won an Oscar.
They make great film.
Okay.
It is incredible. And so if you're looking for one, I think the big one that we always recommend to people is called Crash Landing on You. And it's again, super interesting. But all of that led us to meet this pastor who was leaving our old church, had a dream that he was supposed to plant a church and then, fulfilled that, of course. But we ended up talking to him at the old church because there was something about Korean and we ended up getting connected and this and that. I can't remember exactly how it ended up working, but I know K-dramas were the center of that, of all things, which is super bizarre. But ended up having that all happen, got connected with them. So just a miracle to be a part of that in the first place. And then over time, we had just seen incredible blessings just out of expectation that God would provide. We had an amazing client of mine, church down in Florida, that offered to provide us with Macs, so laptops for the ministry, because that's expensive. All of this stuff to plant a church costs so much money. They offered an incredible donation for that. We had another organization out of Denver that does security training. They offered us some radios that I think almost like $3,000 of radios or whatever for our security team. Stuff like that, people offering things. And then other stuff along the way too. We had the craziest things happen. We were looking for someone to help out with our soundboard because none of us really knew how to use it. It was a donation. We're kind of just all figuring out how to do it. It's so complicated. I look at that thing and it's like hieroglyphics, seeing all the things move around and it's unbelievable. But we had specifically been asking for, it was our audiovisual guy who's leading that team. His name's Emmanuel. Emmanuel asked our pastor and said, hey, like, we probably need someone to help out with the sound. And what would be great is if we had someone who had, 20 years of experience in this and, knew how to use like an X32 is what we had, a Behringer X32, I think was the specific model or whatnot. And so our pastor had someone moving in next door, went over, pray for him, say hi. Turns out the guy worked for a church. And I was like, oh, what do you do? Apparently this guy worked in sound. I'm like, oh, really? How long have you been doing that? He's like, oh, 20 years. He's like, oh, you know how to use the X32? I don't know what that is. He's like, oh yeah, we use that all the time. That's exactly what we use. Right. And so it's just like one of those things where the next day some sort of miracle was fulfilled. And it is so crazy to see how things just fall right into place at the right time.
Yeah. Love that.
Unbelievable.
Well, dude, it's wild, man. Like who would have thought, right? 20 years ago that the little kid asked me how to say curse words in first grade Spanish class.
Yeah. Right.
Here on the podcast.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. Super full circle.
It's super nuts.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. And just sharing your story and business and everything. So we wrap up every episode same way. You grabbed one of your favorite colors off the color wall and you have your statement.
Yeah.
You want to leave with the world when you leave it. What is it?
Do I grab it and read it or what are we doing?
Grab it and read it.
All right, sweet. Awesome. So in particular, this is a verse that has been incredibly important to our business and what we built it on. But 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. If you do everything to the glory of God, you know you are doing it to the best of your ability. It is going to happen and you are giving it your all. And so it's really just about doing the best you can. So
Zach Norris, that's a wrap.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here? And please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Are you a faith-based father and you want to have the adventure of a lifetime with your son? You have to check out the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. June of 2025, I'm going to be taking a small group of fathers and sons over to Spain. We are going to spend 6 days, hike 70 miles, have some of Spain's most amazing cuisines, see some of the most beautiful places and spaces, but most importantly, spend time together bonding with our sons. If you're interested in this adventure, check out mattshoup.com. When you get to the website, click the Gentle Art of Leadership button and hover down to the father-son hike of a lifetime.